And so on to our next session. It's about digital marketing. As Tim said, our audiences have become digital black belts. And I know that for many marketeers, digital marketing has been creeping more and more into their marketing budgets. But as our marketing budgets and resources get a little bit tighter, it's really important that we're making sure that we're delivering exactly what we need to our audiences. And digital marketing serves us in many, many ways. It's still, to me, a bit of a dark art. So I've decided to get an expert in, and that expert is Laura Davidson from Tag Digital. Laura Davidson is the co-founder of Tag Digital, a PPC agency for event organisers working across all sectors. Since founding the company, Laura has helped grow it to a multinational agency that works on over 2,000 events a year. Again, an expert in her field. Laura, welcome. Thank you so much for taking part in today.
Thanks for having us, Katie. We're really excited to be part of the event today. And yeah, really looking forward to our session. So thank you. I will get started. I can't actually see my slides. There we go. Okay, amazing. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining our session today. We are going to be talking about how do we market events in 2021. We work only with event organisers, so the hot topics that everybody has at the moment are how do we build audiences, how do we generate revenue in this new reality. So quick intro to me, I'm Laura Davidson, one of the directors at Tag Digital with 9 years digital advertising experience. And I have been honing my multitasking skills during lockdown, working at home with 4-year-old Darcy and 9-month-old Ralph, which has been pretty intense. So one of the things that we always look at are the trends across the event industry. And we look at trends a lot around search data. So we followed the search data kind of from when the pandemic started, all the way through to our kind of recent trends of the last 90 days. And one of the most interesting things that we've seen is we're starting to get a bit more of an appetite back now for events. So when we looked at the data kind of March, April time, everything fell off a cliff. We saw a kind of plummet in all events and exhibition type terms, but now we're starting to see events coming back in a small way in search data when we look at that across a much kind of bigger scale. Again, when we looked at the data earlier in the year, we saw a huge uptake for virtual events and webinars, and virtual events has remained consistent throughout that time, but webinars has started to have a bit of decline over the last 90 days. So we think that the data is starting to stabilise and we're going to arrive at some sort of hybrid between virtual events, webinars, and some live events starting to come back in the early part of next year. So thinking about some of the problems that event marketers are facing just now and as we kind of move into our new reality, struggling to generate registrations for live and virtual events. Everybody's always wanting to understand what good looks like. So especially in this time when things are changing all of the time, nobody really has any context for where we are. We're trying to quickly gather data, understand benchmarks, and understand what good actually looks like. Being able to create strong brand awareness in a really competitive digital world where we're all fighting for attention and eyeballs, struggling to gather new data online 365 days a year, and identifying new opportunities for international markets. So whether that's on the international, whether that's on the virtual side, or whether it's on the live event marketers are trying to do all of these things at once, and it's really challenging. So what we're seeing across our organisers and across our event marketers is we have a number of different options that we can look at just now. So we can look at potentially running a live event, which we're starting to see. Actually, we have some events happening in the Middle East starting. We have a first event in the US in October, Middle East, and then we're starting to see planning for European events coming back in the spring next year. We then have virtual events. So can you provide a virtual event to your community? Whether that is a thank you to the community, which we're seeing maybe with some of our conferences like Money 2020, have typically done very large scale in-person conferences, but have provided all of their content for free as a virtual event, as a thank you to the community, and lots of other virtual events that have been really, really well received. Not everybody has the capacity to bring together a virtual event. So one of the best things that event organisers can do is to use this time to build data. Using the data to create a really strong universe so that whenever you're ready to do whatever it is you're going to do next, you've built that data based on relevant content, based on video, based on whatever it is that you're doing, so that you're in a really strong position to get started. We've then got platforms. So this has been an interesting development that we've seen across our various organisers, that they're creating platforms that are educational, that are commercial, that's essentially giving their audience a place that they can unite, that they can do business if there is or if there isn't a live event happening. There's a huge amount of sponsorship available around that, and I think it's giving something that works 365 and we don't have the reliance of a live event, but it will still work out when live events come back as well. And then also looking at different ways that we can drive revenue. So it's been a really challenging time for event organisers. We're all looking at different ways that we can drive revenue, whether that's through sponsorship of virtual events, whether it's through emailing, and whether it's through monetization of existing data, which is something that I'll cover towards the end of the presentation, which I think is a way that we can utilize all the data event organisers have got, generate revenue now, but also bringing in revenue streams that aren't just a kind of flash in the pan, that are things that we can actually use as a revenue stream going forward with sitting alongside live events. So whether you're doing virtual, where we would say pretty much everything that you're going to be running is going to be digitally focused, virtual events or live events, digital is absolutely going to be key. We are all spending more and more time online. Our attention is constantly on our screens, and digital is absolutely the way that we need to structure our marketing campaigns. So spending this time, some of the things that we've seen across our clients, across our own team, when we didn't have like a super busy summer, we were able to spend time getting really, really strong on analytics, on performance reporting, and understanding all of the different components around about your digital campaigns. Also looking at email, looking at video. Video is by 2022 going to be the only medium that Facebook is expecting to communicate in. So all of the content they expect to be on the platform is going to be video based. So really investing the time in creating video content, and that can be really simple user generated content, it can be remote videos, it can be repurposed show videos, but as much as you can by videos, by stories, is absolutely going to be key. We focus obviously on paid media, so we work across search, social, programmatic, and retargeting. Organic social is going to be really important, search engine optimization, and then also inbound and marketing automation, so that you're able to create really strong marketing funnels to nurture your audience, to address their challenges, especially at this time, and create personalized content that means that everything is going to work together in one big kind of digital ecosystem. So absolutely, if you're running a virtual event, we see that all of the marketing will be virtual. It's not going to make sense to have print, to have billboards, to have TV, to have radio. It's just not going to work. And then definitely for the live events, where we see in terms of attention, that's one of the ways to bring success to the event, and also much cheaper and much more tangible. So yeah, those are the channels that we would recommend. Then looking at the ways that how do you build new data? What is the funnel that you can use to capture new data, engage existing data, make sure that they're retained, and get them to convert for whatever your main objective might be? So whether you're having virtual, whether you're having live, a platform, whether you're just doing a data build, everybody ultimately has a conversion that they're trying to achieve. So that might be lead generation for sponsorship, it might be a sign up to your platform, it may be a registration for your virtual event. But ultimately, we need to build a large universe of data, because not all of that data is going to do the thing that we'd love them to do. So we need to build a funnel to push all of those users down the funnel and ideally get them to do the thing that you want them to do. Keep in mind that even if they don't do the thing that you want them to do, you should always be capturing those users through cookie lists or through other lead capture tools, so that you never kind of lose any of that, all that hard work that you've put into your marketing campaigns. You want to make sure that you can repurpose that data. Keeping in mind that you can create retargeting lists of up to 540 days, it means that none of your efforts are wasted if they don't do the thing that you ideally want them to do. So starting at the top of the funnel, and we're thinking about paid campaigns, organic campaigns as well, you can kind of include in some of these mediums. So first of all, you want to be creating awareness and you want to create interest. When you're trying to engage a new audience who have maybe never heard of you before, they've never heard of your event, might be a launch event, might be a new country, whatever it is, using YouTube is one of the best ways that you can actually get in front of that audience. YouTube is extremely smart in the way that the algorithm works, and it allows you to do targeting around maybe your competitors' campaigns or your competitors' brand. You can create a video about whatever you're doing and target the same type of audience. You can also use keywords, you can use custom affinity audiences, you can create a whole bunch of different targeting to make sure you get in front of that brand new audience. We then move into the funnel, into interest and consideration, and you might be looking at competitors. So you might be looking at websites or URLs or keywords that you want to use for your competitors. Also, you're looking at non-brand search. So we all search for stuff all the time, every single day, and search is still about probably 50% of any paid media campaign. Non-brand search is anything that doesn't have your actual brand name in it. And middle of the funnel might be something like finance trends, for instance, if you run a finance event. So searching, using those types of keywords to bring in and engage that audience who are definitely interested in what your event's about, but aren't necessarily searching for the type of event. Then moving into intent and an evaluation. So we're looking at non-brand search bottom of the funnel. And to follow the finance example, they might be looking for finance event at that stage. And then finally, you're getting to the bottom of the funnel. So this user's seen your brand a couple of times. They've maybe seen the event. They've seen some of your content, your speakers. They've seen the platform. They have an idea of who you are and they're ready to convert. So we're going to push them to convert using retargeting across display and across social platforms, and then brand search. So by this point, we hope that they know the name and we get them to convert on brand search. People wonder why you would bid on your own brand term. And of course, that's definitely a question to consider, but it's very cheap to do. It protects your brand and a very, very high conversion rate. And it means you can adjust your copy on that. So that's a way that you can start to really build that data flow and push them to do the thing that you want to do. Thinking about your actual campaigns. So things have changed definitely over the last few months. So typically we'd say for an event campaign, you want at least 12 weeks to run your visitor campaign, but that's changed to probably a 6-week virtual. If you're running a virtual event, 6 weeks is absolutely fine to do that with campaigns that are maybe running for 2 weeks. People just aren't planning ahead as much. You want to make sure that your tracking is absolutely in place from the beginning of the campaign. So if we think back to the funnel there, we need to make sure that we can measure those conversions to make sure we know how successful our campaign is. So use Google Tag Manager, use Google Analytics to set up goals, to track what they're doing and get them, and then measure how much is that costing me per registration, how much is that costing me per exhibitor lead, and what kind of revenue am I making on the back of it. Ensure video is part of the content mix, as I mentioned. Forward thinking, so be flexible. If your results come in and you've got a target of £8 a registration and they're coming in at £5, then great, maybe you can add more budget and that's a really effective campaign for you. Create relevant messages for each audience section, each audience sector of the show or the event. So what do your audience want to see? Is it speakers? Is it networking? Is it education? What is it that they want to get? And make sure that you've got relevant messages. Use responsive formats. So the machines are smarter than ever before. They're using 5,000 data points on all of us to make sure that you see the right ad at the right time. You feel like your phone's listening to you all the time. You feel like you're getting ads about things that you've just thought about. Predictive formats and responsive formats mean that you get the best type of ad to the best type of user, but also that the creative looks really good and it works on over 1,000 different placements rather than creating 50 different banner types for very small banner sizes and things like that. So a couple of examples and options on creative. We recently did the Palm Beach International Boat Show, which was virtual, worked really, really well, had 2,749 conversions with a cost per registration of $1.59. So great campaign. They're actually going ahead as a live event in October. But the virtual meant that they had a huge amount of data that people could visit a kind of 8-week online marketplace, and they've got that data now to use as they go into the live event. Also, Info Security, which was a virtual conference, over 1,000 conversions at cost per acquisition of £2.18. So very kind of strong cost per acquisition, affordable campaigns when all of our budgets are getting cut, gives you something that you can do right now and actually generate a huge amount of data. So we're always very big on benchmarks, and we've definitely seen a change in our benchmarks that we're recommending. I'm saying post-COVID, during COVID, really still. So visitor registration, 20 to 40%, we would expect to come from paid media campaigns. That's definitely higher as you get into the virtual events. You're more looking at 40% because you have kind of less options in terms of marketing channels. Conference bookings, probably 20 to 30% we're now seeing. New data, we would always say aim for 60% of your campaign should be driving new data. One of the interesting trends that we've seen is around attendance. So typically for live events, we're expecting maybe a 50% attendance rate. What we saw initially when we were doing virtual events was about 70% attendance rate. That's come down to 60%. And I wonder, will it just come down to kind of average what we see for live events? But at the beginning, it was very high, I think. Going back to some of the stuff that Tim was talking about, people were just desperate to do and be feeling like they were doing something. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses over the next 6 to 12 months. And your cost per acquisition has reduced a huge amount. So that's been one of the positives, I guess, that we've seen is cost per click is down. And we've seen about a 50 to 70% across the board in your cost per acquisition, which, you know, we all need a bit of a break just now. So it means that you're not paying as much per registration, you've got better attendance. So right now in a kind of challenging time, you're getting a bit better bang for your buck, which is really nice. So moving on to generating revenue. This has been a really challenging time for all of our event organisers who are experiencing 50 to 75% drops in revenue, and everybody's looking for new stuff that we can do. So lots of different sponsorship ideas. And one of the most interesting things that we've seen, that's something that we've probably done for the last 4 years, but there wasn't a huge amount of interest in it, is something called audience extension. So audience extension is a way for event organisers to take all of the data that they've built over a huge number of years that maybe not a huge amount happens with throughout the course of the year normally, apart from at event times, and take all of that data and start to monetize that data. So the way that they're doing that is essentially, it's a digital sales tool. So you're able to generate revenue like this month, which I think has been really key for organisers. And it's using all of that data that you guys have built and you're sitting on that's so valuable. So you've got existing data, and data could be cookie lists, which I mentioned before, can be up to 540 days. You've got email data, tons of it, and all of your social engagement audiences. This is allowing you to take all of that data and run campaigns on behalf of your exhibitors and your sponsors to help them meet their objectives. So this is data that's already built. And the exciting thing that we've seen is you can deliver impressions, you can deliver traffic, and you can deliver leads. So essentially, you're creating that value for your exhibitors, even if a live event isn't happening. So why do exhibitors come to events? They come because they get awareness, they get people coming over to their booth and chatting, and they get leads on the back of the event. So it allows you to deliver that for them if a live event is happening or if it's not. And I think that this has kind of come out of a necessity to create revenue whilst the live events aren't happening. But I think this is something that will continue to run alongside live events in the future. 365 product without the reliance of a live event, very high margin digital product. So it's a purely digital product, doesn't cost you anything apart from your media cost to run it. And it means that you can charge a margin on it. So it's been something, as I said, yeah, we've run it for a long time, but nobody was really that interested. But it's become something that's been very powerful for our event organisers now. So it allows your exhibitors to connect with your audience year round. Really strong source of revenue for you guys. You're leveraging your web audience via your remarketing, your first party, your lookalike audiences, and you can scale it across all your exhibitors to drive digital revenue. I think one of the things people don't realise is you can expand those remarketing lists. So if you've not done that already, go into your accounts, expand your retargeting lists to make sure that you're gathering that data, even if it's not something you do right now. It ensures really high quality audience exposure for your clients and really simple reporting. Keep in mind, this is something ideally you do to generate revenue, but we've seen it for clients who maybe don't want to start doing a ton of refunds. Their exhibitors can't travel at the moment, so it gives you just something you can offer them without running all of the credits and refunds that everybody's struggling with at the moment. In terms of how you actually calculate what the revenue opportunity is for you, we created a really simple ROI calculator that I'll include the link in the slides. It allows you to say, okay, if I want to deliver this amount of impressions and charge my exhibitor this, what is it going to cost me and what do I get back? And we've got ourselves in it, but obviously you can just run this yourself. So I'll share that link. It allows you to calculate the return on investment percentage for yourself and see what you can actually deliver for your exhibitors. An example of what the creative looks like. So this was a campaign that we ran for Informa for the fashion division, and they had all their events cancelled, whereas typically they would have a ton of brands and retailers attending in Vegas and New York. So they offered this to all of their brands, and all the brands are essentially looking for more retailers. So we created creative around become a retailer and ran those campaigns to the audience of Informa. And we used responsive creative, so it fitted into over 1,000 different placements. And it meant that brand who was thinking they weren't going to get any exposure to that audience was able to run a really strong campaign to that audience. They get a really simple dashboard so that the exhibitor can actually see what's happening. And the end results were really interesting. So for this specific example, we did lead gen, and lead gen is great, but it's more of a performance metric. You can always start delivering impressions or traffic, but for this we did lead generation. So we got 2.5 million impressions, 73,000 clicks. We also got 205,000 video views, but the best bit for the brand was they got 700 leads. About 60% of those were retailers, and a $23 cost per lead. So for that brand, they were able to connect with all of the retailers, and it meant that they were able to generate business without the reliance of the live event, using the power of the organisers' data. So it was very interesting to test that, and it's created value and created that relationship with the exhibitor, which could have maybe gone a little bit stale over the last year. So just finally on us, we're Tag Digital, event PPC specialists. We aim to drive over 100% uplift for our organisers. We've run over 100,000 different campaigns in over 50 countries. And we offer search, display, social, video and tag management. And we offer analytics and audience extension too. And we aim to deliver 30% of results for our clients, which is usually much higher than their in-house marketing. So thank you so much for listening. I think I've just managed to stay in time. So welcome any questions that anybody has.
Brilliant, thank you, Laura. And remember, everybody, that you can ask questions via the Slido functionality on your screen. I've got some questions, if you don't mind. A lot of people who won't necessarily have had their events this year, they might not have run a virtual experience or a virtual offering, and their event might not be for another 8 to 12 months. Do they still need to be running digital marketing campaigns? What's your advice for brands whose event isn't for a long time?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're seeing just now is if you don't have an event for a long time, everybody still needs to build data just now. So thinking about maybe running some content campaigns, white papers, surveys, webinars, things like that, so that when you are ready to launch the event, you've still been kind of top of mind for people throughout that time, so that we don't fall back into that trap of just kind of marketing when the event is happening, which I think for years organisers have said we want to do 365, and then it never really happened because the events just get so crazy. But that's definitely a shift that we've seen, that people are building data. And I think that the other thing that we'll need to do is longer exhibitor and sponsor lead gen campaigns, just to make sure that we've got all the right messaging, that they feel that it's kind of all okay, and just to kind of convince everybody that it's happening, I would say. So I think you'll need a bit more time on the exhibitor side, but definitely I think data now is just the most important thing for all organisers.
And I loved your funnel. I could have looked at that all day, and I think it's a really good it's a really good tool for anybody using to plan and to plan their digital campaign. I was really surprised to see YouTube at the top. And is that working for B2B marketers as well?
Yeah, for sure. YouTube, I would say maybe like 2 years ago, we would always say, yeah, we'll run the campaign, but like don't expect a huge amount from conversion point of view, and it's awareness, and that's fine. But now what we're seeing is just the features that are available in YouTube are much more designed around your objectives and your conversions. They use a format called True View for Action. So it's much more around creating action as opposed to just kind of watching a video and not really engaging. So we would absolutely recommend YouTube. The other interesting thing about YouTube is it's much cheaper from a cost per view point of view. So search, it gets really expensive. It's a little cheaper just now, but it gets very expensive. Whereas YouTube is maybe 8 cents a view and your clicks are free. So you get a lot more kind of value for money. So yeah, I would definitely say to test YouTube, and they're making it better in terms of content creation and editing your own videos and things like that. So yeah, they're just making it easier and easier to run campaigns on YouTube, organic or paid, really.
I was fascinated by what you said about Facebook video by 2022, because actually that's not actually that far away. And just thinking of that, rewinding that and thinking about what we need to capture, I suppose, in terms of video. Is there any style of video that has a really better impact than others when it comes to exhibitions and events?
I think the shorter, the better is probably the main thing. I think, we often get videos through and it's like our 3-minute overview from 2019 or something like that. And we're just, we're hardly hanging around for a 15-second video now. So it's about how do you create a really kind of punchy teaser video almost. I think, we work with brands like Jitex, for instance, in Dubai, and they do very good kind of cinematic trailers almost to the event. So I think things like that work very well, short, impactful, doesn't have to, have voiceovers or speakers. It can all just be image, even stock reel based sometimes. But I think it's just creating something that's short and engaging, and people just aren't going to hang around and watch anything over a minute, really, I would say.
Definitely. And I must say that I really liked your podcast, Event Industry News. That was at the beginning that was quite a while ago. It seems months and months ago now. But one of the things you mentioned, and I'd just like to bring it up here, is the events information on Google and updating that and how important that is. It's such a small thing, but actually it made me go on and update our business information. I just wondered if you could just clarify that point with the event marketers.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny thinking back to that time. It feels like 10 years ago somehow. But Google released a kind of structured snippet option, so that, because what was happening is you'd go on and you'd say, oh, is that event happening? And it would look like it still was. So Google allowed you to edit the metadata using structured data in Search Console. And it allowed you to say event is postponed, it's cancelled, it's gone virtual. We don't actually know what's happening, and it would allow you to edit that so that it showed directly in the search results. Oh, have I frozen?
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
So you could see. I froze. I can see myself frozen. So it allowed you basically to show that in your search engine results page, like when you look up cinema listings or flight times, you see it in the search results page as opposed to actually having to go on the website. So that was something we recommended because it was just such a mess at the beginning, and Google released a guide on that, which I can add to my slides too.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you so much, Laura. I really appreciate it. And thank you again for sponsoring our day today.
Yeah, for sure. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura, one of the founders at Tag Digital. Tag Digital is a PPC agency for event organisers. Our remit is to deliver visitor registrations, exhibitor leads, delegates, awards and new data for event organisers. We work in campaigns all over the world for organisers like Informa, Messe Frankfurt, Dubai World Trade Centre, Essential, ITE and lots more.